podcast where we create fantastical worlds with help from you, our listeners. I'm here with Lord of Low Self-Esteem, Chris Prunty, and our continued special guest, Daniel Quinn.
I can't believe I can sound so full of myself and so self-loathing all at once.
we can co-own that title together, Chris. I'll tell you that for sure.
Aw.
Anyway, on today's episode, we are in part 2 of our ongoing Land of a Thousand Mod series, where we are talking all things cyberpunk, thanks to a listener prompt from our friend Detlef. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about the factions, well, some factions, conflicts, and technology in the cyberpunk world. On our last episode, we were talking about the Land of a Thousand Mods, a land where corporations once ruled but now have crumbled back into an odd clan system. Privacy is at a premium and essentially a commodity, and where DRM locks down access to technology, making the clan-based system even more important when trading proprietary tech. So, gentlemen, where do we want to start today?
I could do some conflict since that was one of our main topics.
I'm down. Let's go ahead and hear it.
Yeah, to piggyback off the whole DRM thing, which I'm still super psyched about. So I'm thinking, in terms of conflict, usually that has to do with greed and money. So I thought, well, for this multiple mods reality, maybe instead of currency, there's these things called IP chits. And what they are is like they're, instead of like $1, you have a little chip that has a piece of the schematics for a piece of technology on it. And so say you want a coffee maker, that has a certain value to people versus, I don't know, like the ability to, like, say, print out a shovel. So people are trading in these chits. They're literally trading in like intellectual property. And to add on to that, to kind of like build on what Chris was talking about with the whole DRM situation, the world outside is roving with these like these robotic DRM creatures that have the IP in them. So people have to kind of go out there and get the IP out of them and mine them in that sense in order to keep their economy going.
So you can make a living by going out into the climate change scarred wasteland and basically hunting down and scavenging robot parts.
Yeah, and these AI, they're probably like interlinked in some way. So you gotta go out there, kill one of them, get some information out of it, and then run like hell because it's gonna alert all the others since they're interlinked. And maybe like they have the information you're kind of hacking in once you've broken this machine. You get a piece of data out of it, like one of these IP chits, and run, and then that's all you get.
Yeah, I actually don't want to skip over how cool the idea of an IP chit is, because like that replacing currency is so awesome because you're taking the broad theme of information being the most valuable commodity that's prevalent in cyberpunk, and you're really you're doing what you always do, which is making it a physical thing where data and information is now like basically the currency, but I like the idea that it's a fragment. Like it's a fragment of technology that you can buy and sell. I like that.
Yeah.
I just didn't want that to be left over. I mean, come on, man. That's awesome.
I mean, I think it's kind of scary when you're like, okay, I've managed to get a freaking microwave out of this thing. Now, how much can I sell it? How much can I trade? What can I trade for this microwave schematic? Can I trade like a car? Like how much people need microwaves? That's the kind of question you can have.
I also like the idea that's like, man, everyone has the schematic for an axle. The axle is the cheap part.
Yeah.
It's the fan belt that you really need. You got to spend the big chits on.
Exactly.
Yeah. So where's the conflict here exactly?
Yeah, I think it's because so the people who have accumulated certain technologies, like you either have a choice of going out into those wilds and risking getting another copy for yourself, or do you steal it from another quote unquote clan or group who has it, like, which is less risky. So, and then you have probably corporate espionage, or people are like sneaking in and making copies of your chits however they're traded. So you've got like multiple economies, and there's a scarcity in access to technology, or at least understanding of how to reproduce technology.
Can I just say one thing?
Yeah.
If in this setting someone does not say I don't give a shit, a chit, I will be upset.
Oh my god, that has to be the case.
That's the most dumbass dad joke I've ever.
I love
every 8 year. That's no. You know what that is? That's a fucking twitch.tv gamer tag if I've ever
You
heard
could
one
say
before.
it's not worth a chit.
Oh my god. Yeah.
I don't give two chits about this.
Oh
Exactly.
my
Let me
god.
tell you my two chits about this. I got
So
two chits for
I went from loving this to immediately hating all of it.
you.
I'm glad I
Mission
could agree
accomplished.
there.
Ugh. All right. So I like the idea. Again, I do appreciate the fact that you're taking that theme of cyberpunk and the idea of information being really valuable and also creating it in a physical way. I really appreciate that. Chris, what did you have for a conflict?
So my first thought was kind of like the shadow runners, and then I realized like people working behind the scenes that would attack each other. And then I thought, oh, what if they did it out in the open? And I realized we've either done that or it's been done to death. But I thought it would be neat to go back on the DRM kind of side of things and have a new age of piracy, of where there are like proprietary pirates of people who hunt down technology or hunt down software and try and crack it and give it to the masses, which are
Ooh.
taking away things. So I wanted a faction of like new age pirates, which in a sense would go back to Cyberpunk's roots of the hacker culture.
Oh, that's really cool.
It's like prying it out of because I assume like about a lot of the really wealthy people have probably a lot of these IP chits, and so this group of hackers or this kind of hacker alliance in a sense is prying it out of the hands of those people and giving it back.
Oh
Yeah.
man. Okay, hold on. I have my third conflict actually might be able to tie all three of these together.
Nice.
Um, okay, so my conflict is I wanted to have a little bit more focus on the climate change aspect of the world and like what does because obviously cyberpunk has roots in like technology and humanity and the blending and the conflict between the two of them, right? And how they kind of interplay. And one thing that I wanted to kind of bring to the forefront was like technology or rather uh nature and civilization constantly at war with one another, and humanity essentially trying to fight the effects of climate change as best they can. And by doing so, you get this kind of like roughneck storm fighting, like, okay, they're like going out there and they're basically cowboys. But what makes me think of all this, putting it together, Chris has what is essentially cyber pirates.
Mm-hmm.
Daniel has going out into the wastes and fighting robots. Why not have them all come together and have some kind of like the robot? Oh my god,
Robots.
the
I love it.
robots.
I love
I'm 95.
We
it.
Hold
We can
on.
only say
with the
robots from here
robots.
on out. Only
Yeah.
robots. Don't say robot.
No, no, no. So the robots that they're going out and these wastes that Daniel are talking about, let's make it so it's a matter of like just oceans of plastic or
Oh.
they're aquatic robots, right?
Mhm.
So it's not just a matter of you're going out into windswept deserts and stuff like
They're
that. It's like,
literal pirates.
yeah, and that's where I was going. They're also literal
Yes.
pirates.
Oh my
So
god.
they're yeah, so we can bring all of these together where they're evading storms and
Mhm.
obviously because climate change they're mega storms now. There's no such thing as a category
Oh my
1 hurricane anymore. So
god.
they're dodging and fighting the effects of climate change. They are simultaneously like harvesting the original robots which were supposed to solve the climate change problem to begin with, and that's how we bring it all
They're
together.
facing like giant robot leviathans that were probably meant to like control storms or dig really deep in the ocean, but now they're out of control
Living
and you've got to fight them.
They're fighting living seawalls in some
Oh my
case.
god.
Can you fucking imagine that? That'd be
I love
so fucking cool. Yeah.
that. That's great.
Woo. All right. I love that. And obviously that was my conflict as well, where it's
Mhm.
like climate change. But no, that's awesome. I love that.
That's so
Oh
much
man.
fun. I could totally see like one of Chris's, cyber pirates, and he's like this hardened, like let's say like ex computer hacker who really has no physical like real life skills, but he knows how to break into a system. So he's got together to get his crew together to get on a boat that they don't know how to really pilot and get out into the actual ocean and then learn how to get to the machine.
Mm.
Oh man, that's awesome, dude. How else can we add in? Oh wait, and on top of this, now I'm thinking that when you talk about like entertainment and stuff like that, these guys are probably like, you know, these are the pirate radio people. These are the, oh, let's tune into this channel and see what they're doing this time. Oh man,
Are
did
you
you see
saying they're
that
Twitch
guy?
streamers?
Yes, yes, I am.
Is the
Because
internet like global still, or has it broken down?
oh, maybe that's a thing. Maybe they can like, when I was saying like pirate radio, it only gets to a certain number of people. And
Yeah.
this is one of the few instances where physical media is the only way to actually watch their broadcasts.
Yeah, I think it makes sense for like the satellites to not really be working, so the internet's kind of disparate.
Wait. To go back in the fact that we were
Fiber.
saying information was controlled,
Mhm.
to give the pirates more of a noble role, what if also they were giving out that information? And so the reason they're out on the ocean is because of the the dead spots, the dead zones that the satellite and information can't travel. So
Oh.
X doesn't know about Y, but they're doing it to make the world a smaller place again.
Even if it's just for a moment. Yeah. Or it's kind of like international waters, right? Where you get
Y-
out far enough and you lose the signal a little bit.
So
Yeah.
they're kind of like digging up the truth and then delivering it back. Since we decided before, like the truth has been become so local in a sense. If they're crossing those boundaries, maybe they're delivering the truth outside their circles.
Yeah, and I mean like the traditional cyberpunk like heroes and anti-heroes were all hackers and stuff like
Mhm.
that, right? So it would make total sense that with the overflowing of the oceans and everything like that, the natural, kind of evolution of that is pirate, and I mean that in a literal and physical sense, right?
Yeah, yeah. No, I
Can't
think
stop
it
the
makes
Yeah.
signal.
What'd you say?
Can't stop the single.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I can
Okay.
even see like fortresses where really wealthy entities or individuals have built themselves against the ocean and the elements, and they're kind of hiding away in there and hoarding either the information that they need, to survive, and that's what those pirates are after too.
Oh, absolutely. Whew, all right. I'm fucking down with all of this. Let's go, baby.
One of the things that I liked about technology in a lot of futuristic games is the different scale of how they'll do. This is the bleeding edge of technology. This is the basic technology that people have. And I think that's good going back to the bits, that maybe there's also an economy there where there's bits from this, bits from that. Like you can get an axle, but it's an axle to something from like 30 years ago, as
Oh,
opposed to, oh, I have the new Tesla axle. So, you want this over that.
so for example, like the IP that they can recover, it might be like retro technology rather than cutting edge, bleeding edge stuff that they used to have at the turn of the century, say.
Oddly enough, one of the things that I labeled in different technology was like corporate technology, of where it's stuff that's kind of been developed or they own. So it's
Mhm.
good stuff to go back to those clans and whatnot that they're known for making this. It works. Retro, I also wanted it to be maybe retrofitted. So like, yeah, it's a microwave, but if we kind of tinker with it a bit, we can also make it into something that will heat a house.
Yeah, and I think that really dives into two parts of the original cyberpunk spirit of one where it's like the gig economy, right? Where you have to hustle constantly
Mhm.
because that's how it is. And it's like part of a DIY thing. And the other part that I really like about that concept is it's either bleeding edge or it's obsolete, right?
Yeah.
And that like
Mm.
that's the dichotomy between the two of them, and everyone's clamoring for the bleeding edge, but often they're like, all right, I'm gonna get last year's model and kind of retrofit and kind of jerry rig whatever I can to make it work, and that's again where the gig economy thing comes in, right? And the
Could
DIY
I
aspect of it.
could I insert one other thing on top of the DRM that's very topical of nowadays?
Sure.
Plan obsolescence has unfortunately cause failure for a lot of the things where it's just
Mhm.
like, oh, we made this, but we actually didn't plan it to last that long. It was only supposed to last you 6 years, so you got to buy a new one, and that's kind of why people have stagnated so much.
Wait a minute. 6 years is a long time. I mean,
Okay, I know it's a long time,
Even
but
3
I was
years.
going
Yeah.
for like even the best thing. I have certain things that I've
yeah.
owned for like a decade.
Mhm. No,
Okay,
Darn
that
your
tough
makes sense too,
socks.
'cause
your Deadpool shirt doesn't count, Chris.
Darn tough socks.
well,
Okay, yeah, Darn Tough Socks are great. I'm not gonna lie.
it's like imagining if say you found a chip that's like contains some Samsung, washer and dryer, and you're like, fuck, that's gonna last like a year. These are useless, as opposed to say you find
Oh,
something that's like a really good brand.
yeah.
Oh, I
No,
found a
no,
Hobart.
that's a great idea. Yeah, because it's like it's not just a matter of like branding or finding the chits that are valuable because it's specific parts,
Hmm.
but it's also like the brand
You
actually
need it. Yeah,
matters.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is also a big part of Cyberpunk as well. I
Mm.
mean, like anyone who's read Neuromancer knows that you don't go with like, the Zen Daikos or whatever it is. I can't
Mhm.
remember the name,
You
but
don't
We
go
got
with
the
the low.
Dr. Thunder version.
You want the right
no,
kind of deck. The right kind of brand of deck. Yeah.
yes. And then there's like you don't get this specific type of eye mod because it
Mhm.
blinds you within a couple of years without proper like maintenance and stuff like that.
And it ties back into the concept that there being no one truth and that there's no one microwave. There's like a 700 different brands of microwave, and you got to find the good one.
Yes, absolutely. And yeah, man. I do love the idea that there's an inordinate amount of waste
Mhm.
as a result of this as well, because it's like, oh, we keep having to use this shitty technology.
And we throw
And
it away.
actually, yeah, and not only that, but that's also kind of indicative of how, like modern culture kind of works now, right? Like poor people are stay poor because
Yeah.
they buy cheaper things that don't last as long
Right.
rather than save up for things that will last way longer, like richer people have the option to do.
Hmm. I mean, I love your metaphor. Like your concrete version of a metaphor for that is the sea of plastic that you're
Mm.
that they're
Yes,
literally surfing through now because that's the
yes,
remnants of the past.
And we haven't
absolutely.
really learned from it.
Nope.
Because we can't.
Now we're drowning it.
Yeah.
Oh, can we also talk about the idea that the oceans are probably poisoned as well?
Yes, that would be great. Like, oh, do you remember what was that cartoon, Dark Waters? That's what I'm thinking.
Oh my. Noise
Honestly,
tut.
I actually had that in mind. I'm like, this is kind
Yes,
of sounding a little bit like a cyberpunk Dark Waters, and I'm kind of digging that,
I like it. I have
Yeah.
I have
Shut.
something tech wise I can add to that.
Go ahead.
So like this, I think this falls right in the footsteps of what Chris was talking about. But so if you have the IP on in hand, right? You got this chip. Well, how do you exploit it, right? That means that we need to introduce technology that is central for them to use the IP. So I'm thinking I came up with two names. One's called a short maker, and one's called a long maker. So a short maker is like a handheld device that instantly 3D prints with the proper maybe fuel cell, whatever's on the chip. So if I get a microwave chip, I can put it in my short maker and then print the microwave. Now, if I got a long maker, this is maybe ones that there's only a few of them. Nobody knows how to really build them anymore. And so really rich people have them, and they're called long makers, and they're really big 3D printers. So you'd put like a chip for like a tank, and it prints the tank. And perhaps these devices, the long makers and short makers, nobody has the chits to print these. Like that's long lost, but it's like a key technology people use to produce things.
Ooh. There is something that has used this term before. I think it's called archotech. It's where
Oh,
it's just like archaeologically we found this and
yeah,
we
yeah,
can't reproduce it, but this is a treasure.
exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like they're super rare, kind of like the decks, say in Neuromancer. Like they're highly desired.
Yeah.
Uh, just a side point, does anyone remember the name of the melons in Pirates of Dockwater?
No.
Not at all.
Oh, it was the fucking monkey bird loved it.
Yeah.
Them
I
drive me
remember the
crazy.
monkey bird. I don't remember what he liked though.
Minga melons.
Oh,
He loved Minga melons. I can sleep soundly tonight.
Why does that still sound like a slur coming from you? I don't understand.
No, but Noisia Tut didn't?
No, that sounded more like you were just annoyed and like kind of swearing. Minga melons sound like it's like, look at those Minga melons on that Minga over there, and you're like, dude,
oh
you
my
keep calling
god.
her
Whoa,
Minga.
whoa, whoa.
Yeah, exactly.
Huh.
Yeah.
Hey, Darkwater came up with it. We cannot be held liable.
Actually, maybe that's why it was canceled and we're just propagating.
Mm-hmm.
Hey guys, did you know that in Southeast Asia that's a very bad slur?
They're like, crap. Well, we got to pull the show.
Oh no, our 7 listeners.
Oh, I meant Darkwaters. We'll never pull this.
Oh yeah, no, that's true. We're still going on. Yeah. All right. There's no good segue. So, um, one thing that I did kind of want to so for my aspect of technology that I wanted to talk about is this idea of the algorithm and algorithmic data. Um, I liked the idea that we were talking about last week, where a lot of it is DRM heavy and a lot of it is like AI is vaguely benevolent in the background, right? And one thing I did want to talk about is this idea that there are certain aspects of civilization now that are just automated through algorithmic data.
Ooh.
And it's kind of running in the background and we kind of don't notice it anymore. You know, like, so for example, right? Uh, you know, years ago, we've set the algorithm so there's no such thing as meteorology anymore. The
Mm-hmm.
technology that we have set up now recognizes when and how data, or they recognize the data of how weather is going to happen, and then sends out these storm chaser and storm fighters to, like, patch the storm wall and make sure everything's safe, and to make sure that certain people just don't get affected by weather anymore. But it's like this intense thing that most mainlanders just don't even see because it's all happening, it's all been automated. And I want this to be kind of like a neural web, a neural network where this happens, where there's all sorts of things that we don't know are being automated that are.
It's like the ultimate result of like IoT technology, like Internet of Things, where we've lost the a sense of how that works anymore. So like you're saying with the weather, like all these systems are in place to take care of that stuff, but we don't have the programmers who understand the algorithm anymore, and we don't have the technology to recreate it. So it's this lost knowledge that seems benevolent almost to us.
And if
Right.
part of an area stops working, we have no idea why or how
Yes.
or what to do. It's just like, oh yeah, no, Georgia's just destroyed by weather lately.
Hmm.
Guess that's
How about
happening now.
that? Yeah, and there's another aspect that I wanted to talk about as well, where these algorithms, we all think about the algorithm as some kind of like an unbiased AI.
Hmm.
However, we have to talk about the idea that AI was designed by people,
Yep.
or algorithms were designed by people, right? So I can imagine that there are some very strange aspects in society that, due to this automated algorithm, is now severely fucked up, or like very strange and twisted in certain aspects. And I'm sure that there are entire clans or parts of clans that are just warped by this algorithm that they don't even recognize it at some point.
I mean, it's like what it's going taking the natural extension of what happens where if you had, for example, like police profiling and technology behind that is done on an automated fashion, and then you realize there were certain biases built into the profile. So it's like, okay, well now what if you had some kind of algorithm, like you're saying, running that was taking care of something, and it's affected culture over like 100 years? Like, how has it
Yes.
altered practices and behaviors because we don't even realize the biases we built into it originally?
Because this area is used for farmland, they have programmed it to rain here and be this climate to grow this fruit. And what happens if you do that for 50 years?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And we forget the whole reason why we did it.
Yeah.
I was actually thinking closer to what Daniel had in mind, where it's like, I think Google put out this thing where it was trying to recognize, the facial features of famous or rich people or something like
Yeah.
that.
Hmm.
And because of poor programming and because of the information that it was fed, it started to separate black people as like apes and gorillas and stuff like
Oh,
that.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the type of like really fucked up stuff that we don't even recognize a lot of the time when we're using the algorithms.
Hmm.
Similarly, I remember that I think it was Google, where they were feeding it information about these are the qualifiers of really great employees, and then they were looking at the data, and it's like, wait a minute, 99% of these are coming back as male. And they
Hmm.
looked at the information that they fed them, and they were all men. like all of the
Yeah.
good applicants were applied as men, and so when it was actually applied in the algorithm, you get this weird kind of glitch in the matrix type thing, which again, because we accept the algorithm as unbiased, you
You
miss
get
this
self-fulfilling
whole
prophecies, basically, you know?
exactly,
Yeah.
or like biases that you weren't even aware of at the
Mhm.
time.
Oh,
So
it could
it's
also reveal truths that we didn't realize, like you're saying, like a bias for men, you know?
absolutely, absolutely. I mean, wait a minute. There's a bias in big tech towards males. What?
I don't believe
Oh
it.
man. So anyway, that's my general concept. I do want to make sure that the algorithm is like seedily webbed throughout every aspect of the society. I think it's important that there are certain things that are automated
Mhm.
and work vaguely as intended. I do want there to be somewhat sinister side as well. I think that's important.
Well, it's interesting too, is it kind of goes back to I think the original concept that underlies what Chris was talking about with the DRM. So it kind of reminds me of what Chris was talking about with one of the intentions that was built into the DRM in the beginning, which was possibly, and we don't know if this is true or not, to help protect humanity in some way. It was originally designed probably for corporate reasons in the sense that it's protecting IP, but something went wrong and then things broke down and we got part of this climate slash DRM apocalypse that we were talking about. But when we have things like algorithms built by humans that are still running, whatever's going on out in the wilds, that AI might be slightly different because it's been running independent of humans now. So we don't really know what its intentions are. So it might be benevolent, it might be totally neutral to us or totally hostile. But all we know is that the algorithms inside our society or the remnants of it left, like, are still functioning as they were and slowly changing us. So you've got like this weird alien nature growing inside humanity and then the super alien nature outside of humanity.
Damn, Daniel. That's actually really fucking cool.
Well, I'm just thinking about like our cyber pirates. Like they're literally fighting nature that we made in a sense. We made it like
Yeah.
physically, right, through screwing up our environment, but we also made the AI that's living out in it now. You know.
Oh god. There's so much cool shit to be mined in that regard.
Mm.
Oh man. Oh, speaking about unsavory things, I do want to get into my wait, we're doing factions, right?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Okay. Speaking of unsavory types and everything, I do want to get into my faction
yeah.
because I realized that we've never had like a an organized crime syndicate
Ooh.
ever in most of our things. I did want to add some kind of organized crime, which is basically in and of itself a clan, right? You look at how Cyberpunk treats the Yakuza, where
Mhm.
they stop being, like just an organized crime family or series of clans, whatever, and then they become an actual corporation. In this sense, this is basically the same thing, but they're way, way grosser. And I call them currently the meat market,
Oh.
and they're bio poachers for the really fabulously wealthy.
Oh, okay, good. I love that.
Yeah.
That's classic.
So they hunt down the perfect specimen for the rich. If you need a specific shade of blue eye that's a 2020, they go out into the slums, they go out into the poorer parts of town, they hunt them down and they take them and sell them to the rich, right?
Oh.
Because originally we were talking about the idea that the less mods that you have, the more the pure that you are, right?
Yeah.
And actually I wanted to dive deeper into that for a little bit, because I came up with an extension and kind of an extrapolation of that thought, wherein the less modded you are, the more obvious it is you come from wealth, because for the most part the average citizen is born into tremendous debt, and
Mhm.
the only way that they can you know get out of that debt is to start selling off body parts. And so the poorer you are, the less organic you are, because you're going to be giving away your hands, your feet, your eyes, your teeth, your ears, your liver, etc., because you fell into debt. What else can you do except sell your parts? And you know, that's just what happens. And
Oh my
so
god,
when
that's
you're
so Repo Man.
yeah, I was it was somewhat reminiscent of
I
Repo
love it.
Man, yeah.
Oh
Um,
yeah. I forgot about
Yeah.
Repo Men.
Yeah, Repo Man's pretty cool and also kind of terrible. Oh, you
Yeah.
know, yeah.
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 Bad
I'm
good.
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you because I was just like, okay, I'm
No.
totally seeing what you're saying, you know?
Yeah, well, and that's kind of where I go back with the meat market, right? Where these aren't the ones who do it legally and look for the people who are like, "Hey, I'm in debt," and they're here to collect. It's like, no, we're hunting for the primo shit. You know,
Mhm.
like these aren't people who necessarily are willing to part with it or are in such debt that they're, willing to give those parts up, but they have clients that are willing to pay. Oh, you don't want the money? That's fine. We'll take it anyway.
Oh my
And
god.
so there's this sinister organization of body harvesters that are just out there in the night, and they're called the meat market, and they're a clan. And I didn't have that originally, but that's what it is now.
I can add something extra horrible to that if you like.
Let's do it. Let's hear it, Daniel. Let me see if you want a big Papa Palpatine this or
Yeah,
not.
I gotta Palpatine this. So like, I love that they're like taking people so they can be harvested. And it makes perfect sense. They're like headhunters for the best like body parts. What if there's like a subgroup inside of them that not only do they headhunt, but they capture either children or particular individuals, bring them into like compounds, breed them because they have a specific DNA that's great for producing more organs, and then sell those offspring to the rich people to continue
Okay,
like their own market inside that.
okay, Daniel. Uh, as soon as you started this, I knew where it was going.
Yeah,
It turned my stomach, and I'm like, yeah, that's where we're going with
it's pretty
this.
horrible.
Yeah, because now you're taking a look at like literally feeding off of the poor
Mhm.
and like literally treating them as cattle, which is obviously, yeah, course,
And
of
they don't
course,
know
we're
the
going to do
truth
this.
and they don't have privacy already. So the fact that they might be captured, they could spin this like, oh, you've been chosen to live in this special happy compound where we just breed
Oh,
you, and then your children are you are hand selected to be given as body
Yeah,
parts to the rich.
actually, that makes a lot more sense. That the meat market doesn't just go and like, hey, we're hunting them down like in a brutal fashion. It's like
Mhm.
we're going to take you back and we're going to harvest you over and over
Oh
and
God.
over again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Oh my
that's
God.
it's intergenerational, and you get into these like giant compounds where it's, yeah, no, I'm going to leave that horrible shit. Yeah, that's absolutely what we're doing. Yeah,
That's
great
what
job,
Chris's
Daniel.
parents are trying to
Yeah.
reveal, right? Like stuff like that.
Honestly, I imagine that in some societies they just take it as fact, and they're like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, that's
Oh,
just how it
true.
works."
It might be status
Be-
quo, you know?
yeah,
Mhm.
one of the things that I really appreciate is the fact that cynicism is treated as the enemy in
Mhm.
cyberpunk. Oftentimes, where it's like we should look at cynicism as an enemy to progress because that is what it is. We can't just let things maintain because that uh, when you let cynicism win,
Mhm.
you let the status quo win. You let the machinery continue to grind gristle and bone.
Yeah.
And so we want to fight that as much as possible. And I like the idea that in this cyberpunk world, this is an evil to be fought against, and this is a cynicism to be fought against as well.
Mhm. That's at the core
Whew.
of Cyberpunk. I love
Okay.
it.
Does anyone have something less depressing than that for their faction? Please.
mine isn't uh too depressing.
Well, good. Let's do it.
Okay, so my faction was pretty much just
By the
based
way,
on.
this does obviously show that Daniel's is also depressing. So
Damn it.
go ahead, Chris.
Uh,
Lift us up before Daniel drags us back down.
I said it wasn't totally depressing.
It's only marginally.
So mine was based on a love of Blade Runner, and what I wanted it to be was a faction known as the Duelist, and they are people who hunt down rogue AIs that have taken over people who have a lot of body modifications. And I think going back on the fact that the AI that we saw earlier uh, had like the algorithm or anything, I wanted it to be a group that is kind of policing the AIs, trying to find out anyone that they have taken over. But originally, I didn't have this going either good or bad. But I think to spin on the fact that that was so depressing that maybe it should be good, and it's really just people being policing of them to try and figure out what their motives are. Because if the AI were to take over, there'd be no stopping them.
I mean, if you want to
Hmm.
spin it in a positive angle, like maybe this group, the duelists that are collecting these humans who have put on too many mods and then like adopted a personality of maybe part of the algorithm, maybe they're like doing it to bring the AI into the physical world. Like maybe the AIs that wake up this way aren't really fully aware, like they lose their intention. And this group is like, okay, we got to get them together so we can together figure out what the algorithm is about and how they can help each other and everyone else.
The other thing that I wanted them to be is kind of like the Men in Black. People don't even know that they exist. Going
Yeah.
back to the fact that the algorithm isn't fully aware or known of, that people could be like, so why'd they take that guy? Just like, oh, I don't know. And then there's conspiracy nuts out there that are saying that X, Y, and Z is why it would happen.
Yeah, they're so you have these invisible agents of the algorithm. You know,
Mhm.
like sometimes the algorithm has to forcibly correct something, and then that's when they possess these which are obviously the poorer people in society, and so they're even easier to be, like less detected because they're looked at and be like, oh, you're less than human.
Mhm.
It's easier for them to kind of possess them because no one's paying attention to them in the first place. And
Is
then
it an
that's where your
uplift?
duelists come in. Huh?
Is it an uplift for so like we have a downlift, right, with the people who get taken by the meat market. Is it an uplift for the poor who have had these mods and they get taken by the algorithm? Like are they given a new life to do a new purpose? Like is it poor plus, you know?
No, because the organization that Chris is creating are people who are hunting down these agents of the algorithm.
Oh, they're hunting those people.
Correct.
Yeah.
Oh, for to destroy them or to
Just because what if you have 10 people who are taken over
Mhm.
by this AI, that's not so much of a problem. But then if you have 10,000,
Yeah.
suddenly it's like, how do we control this? It's grown out of control. So they try and shut it down. It's the reverse agents from the Matrix.
Oh
Yes.
yeah, that's absolutely what it is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. They're the Turing police is basically what they are, but from Neuromancer. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. All right.
But
That's that
they're not like trying to stop like AI awareness because AIs already exist. They're trying to stop AIs from manifesting. Really
Well, I think if people knew that it could exist in the physical world, that's where they would start to get like
worried.
nervous or queasy.
Yeah.
I like this idea that the duelists themselves are essentially neutral, right? Like you mentioned that previously, and all they're trying to do is figure out why and how this is happening. Like I like the idea that there's such a general level of ignorance that
Mhm.
all these folks are trying to do is just figure it out. Like what the fuck's going on, right?
Yeah, I like that too. They're kind of like a clueless CIA almost. Like they don't have everything under control.
Cool. All right. And Daniel, for our final faction of the night, or day, or whenever you're listening to this, don't worry about it.
So like I was thinking a little bit of, like sort of eco punk because we got the whole really cool environment going on now, which would make them work a little bit more too. I gave them a name which comes from the old Norse word for dwarf. So they're called the Doomverger, and they're not dwarves, so don't worry. But they are people who are kind of like apocalypse preppers who live under this underground metropolis that's powered by like geothermal energy. And the way they work is that they've been collecting information about the apocalypse itself and the world before it. And a lot of this information is encrypted because of all the DRM that happened. So their society has kind of evolved into a sort of religious apocalypse cult. And they like are regarded by the world above as they call them like maggots or like as weird culty people, but they're really like um, eco-conscious in the sense that what they believe is trying to restore the environment to the way it was before, possibly by understanding the apocalypse itself. So I picture them like wearing a lot of gear and stuff that's like radiation absorbing and like EM shielding, so they can go out into the wilds and of the oceans and like collect whatever information they can. But they're pretty survivalist, so they keep to themselves and they like hide underneath these like steam holes. So like you see steam coming out from their geothermal vents. So then you know like okay, well that's like a Doomburger camp. We can't really go there because they might be dangerous, but they're actually not bad people.
All right, so where's the depressing bit?
Maybe they're not depressing. I mean,
Why do you
I
need?
thought maybe they're not. Maybe they're the hopeful bit.
I was gonna say these don't sound. These sound hopeful. These sound like they're the
Yeah.
closest thing. Yeah.
Yeah, because they're trying to solve the problem, but people think that they're like scary and not to be approached.
Mm.
All right. Yeah. Um. Fuck it. Yeah. That's cool. That's good. Um. Yeah. I think that'll just about wrap it up for this episode. What do you think, guys?
Wow, I
Yay.
want to play in this world already. Get on some
Yeah.
boats and fight some robots, some
I
robots.
mean, yeah, absolutely.
So
I'm down with
I
this.
I do have one other question. Would
Yeah,
the cyber pirate still have an eye patch, or would it just be a very fancy like eye og?
Okay.
iogs. Yeah.
I have a good compromise.
Hmm.
It will be so there's a pretty there's a pretty prevalent theme or not no. There's kind of a there's kind of like a totemic image for cyberpunk, and it's that of like the mirrored sunglasses.
Hmm.
And I think in this case, you can have one eye that is a constant mirrored sunglass. You know, like so again, we keep referencing Neuromancer, but
Yeah.
if you'll remember, Molly Millions always has mirrored sunglasses on.
Hmm. And they're
Just
like in her
remove
face. Yeah.
exactly, and that's exactly what it is here. It's just
Mhm.
one constant mirrored sunglass eye, and that's it. And that's what we're doing.
Cool.
Hmm.
Yeah. All right. All right. I think we're gonna call it there, and we will pick it back up for part 3, our final part in our short jaunt into the land of 1,000 mods. Remember that if you want to submit a prompt that we can kind of explore on our own, please go ahead and send it in to worldbuildwithus@gmail.com, or you can send us a Twitter over at the tweet machines at Let's Worldbuild, and we'll get back to you either way. So I am Rob Hilferty. I've been here with Chris Prunty and Daniel Quinn. Remember that we love you very much, and we will see you next week. Be safe.